All right. Can you see me?
Are you talking to me? I can. Are you talking to Facebook people?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
Yeah,
Are you talking
I
to
know.
Facebook? We're here. We're live. Okay, cool. So apologies. I'm just getting used to the tech here. I wanted to say welcome to those of you joining us live on the Trigger Proof Facebook community, or watching the replay, or perhaps you're listening to this on Spotify, on our podcast. It is with great pleasure for me to reach out to somebody that I've worked closely with months after to see, hey, how are things going? I do that on occasion. Something really neat, Marissa, I got to tell you, something really neat about this type of work is you get, when you choose the right client and there's a really great bond and you've kind of shepherded them through some challenging moments and some healing, there's something really special that happens. So it's really cool. It's really cool to be chatting with you now and then sharing your story. I thought, holy cow, like how many people could relate to what you're going through, what you had gone through, the frustration that you felt in how you showed up in relationships. The conversation of relationships is in everybody's face right now with Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. Everybody's watching this, you know, and everyone's making their judgments. In reality, we're looking at ourselves. We're looking at parts of ourselves. We're looking at reflections of ourselves. And so the conversation of trauma bonds is something I hold very near and dear to my heart because of what I've gone through. And now I really enjoy helping people through down the same path that I went through, to move from anxious attachment, avoidant type of patterns, feeling frustrated at the same damn thing happening again and again and again, and then being able to then move them to creating secure relationships, sometimes for the very first time in their 40s. Go figure, right? It's a skill we don't really learn. So I just wanted to say thank you for agreeing to come and chat with me and to share your story, and just to share, you know, why did you first reach out to me? What was going on in your life before you chose to kind of reach out and say, hey, I'd like some help?
I'd been married twice, and my second marriage, I had my son, and it was as ugly a relationship and divorce as you could have. And so I felt like I was somehow managing, in trying to do well, to end up with the worst that everybody cautions you about. And I just ended a 5-year relationship with someone, and I just kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? It's clearly me, because I'm the one. And I had this pressure. My son is 10 now. And I wanted to get all of this straight before he was like me, the 9-10-year-old of divorced parents, getting it wrong. And I couldn't beat that deadline either. And so I got really lucky. I met someone like on Tinder, for heaven's sakes. And he asked interesting questions.
On your first date? Was this your first date? Or just
my first date.
He asked interesting questions like on text?
No, I met him. I met him, and it was like one of those moments that I didn't think existed, except it wasn't like we were running toward each other in slow motion with music. I just suddenly saw this person that showed me who he was, and I wanted to be like that too. But also, he was very clear at who I was.
He could see you.
Yeah, and it wasn't great, right? I mean, the me he saw, I thought at the time, was a mess. I was broken, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was trying really hard, and I'm sure he saw all of that right away. Mm-hmm. And so over the next week, he gently but persistently asked if I knew about trauma bonds, and if I knew about attachment styles, and if I had taken that test on attachment styles. And I had a text, right? I went on a first date with him. He lived away. It was magical. And then things went downhill from there, because that was my experience. And I was an anxious avoidant. And so he said, take that test. And I said, yes. And I was the worst. So
That was your story, is that I was the worst. Yeah.
Thanks anyway. I was so ashamed and embarrassed. And so I guess it took a couple weeks. And he said, well, I've been through things. I've been working on this. And finally, one day I just said, I don't know how to do this. I'm trying and I don't know how to do this. And I need a book and a coach and a hug. And he said, well, I can actually help you with all those. Right? Like I have coaches. And I was like, what? Because I thought of therapists as coaches. And so that's how I was introduced to you. I looked at because I needed to make my own decision. And I was like, okay, Nima's your coach. We'll go look at others too. So it's my decision. You don't own my decision. And then, I met you and Kim, and here I am.
It's interesting. Yeah. What you didn't say was that he was a graduate of our program. So this wonderful guy that you met, that was very, able to take off his mask and show intimacy and really see you, was an actual graduate of my program. And so he referred you. He said, look, I think you should talk to Nima. And so we jumped on a call. And what was your life like before then? Because you were having a relationship with alcohol and addictions and, that kind of thing as well. You're a parent too. You have a 10-year-old son. Yep.
He's 10 now. As a functional alcoholic, I'm an executive at a corporation, and I had spent my whole life avoiding feelings, because my feelings are big. I'm empathetic and I worry about everything I see in the news, and I just can't hold it.
And you're a pleaser too, right? And you want to get in there and fix and take responsibility.
And a fixer. And I made a career out of it, because I started as a project manager. And then as I climbed, I did risk management, all of the things that I tried to make my world work. I paid off. And so part of the problem I had was this idea that, if you ask anybody successful, people go, oh, Steve Jobs said he wished he'd spent more time with his family. Yeah, but if he had, you never would have known who he was.
Right.
And so the big thing for me that I think landed it, although not at first, I had a couple meltdowns, was that what got me here is worthy of respect and love.
Okay.
I don't get to pretend that I didn't succeed because of it. I just have to figure out what to do next.
So you'd gone through a couple of divorces, this relationship, functional alcoholic, stuffing down your emotions and showing up in relationships with the similar patterns where they were so big that you didn't know what to do with them. You're like, you had emotional flashbacks that would come up that you didn't know really what to do with, and that spilled into your relationships.
Oh yeah.
And so how would you describe your state in 3 or 4 words?
Then?
Before we started.
Terrified of everything. So I was terrified and hopeless. I've been this person my whole life. Why would I think I would suddenly magically figure out how to be different?
Yeah. Because what had you tried before to resolve this?
Well, the way I thought about it was, I've been this person my whole life and I've made the best of it.
Yeah, you're successful.
It's working for everybody but me deep down. And so I have to figure out how to hide all the things that aren't working. It was just this big shell game. And so I just didn't know where to go with it. I just figured it would always be this way. I would always be this broken. And if I believed I was broken, then I had to find somebody willing to put up with my broken self.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, look, I'm just gonna, you just got to put up with it. I don't have to work on, I'm gonna, just live with it and find someone who can, tolerate my brokenness.
Put up with it, almost. And then I spent all my time trying to prove that ROI was worth it. So, I just tried to make everything better, because then it would be worth it for you to deal with my broken self.
Interesting. So kind of like over-functioning, overcompensating to compensate for, can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of, because I find that funny and entertaining and cute about you, but can you give me, because I find you funny, can you give me an example of how that would show up in a relationship?
Well, okay. So I'm going to give you, no, I mean, I'll do a real relationship.
Mhm.
I was the fixer, provider, producer person. And if I wasn't, then why would it be worth it for you to be in a relationship with me? I'm messy. I'm like a fraternity guy who grew up. Like my clothes are on the floor and I have paperwork everywhere and I drop things to do work because it's important to me. And so I don't do laundry or clean up, but I should. And in exchange, oh, you have a problem, I will fix it. I will call the thing and do the thing and fix the thing so that you never have to be unhappy. Because
So
then
I can be
I will be
lovable.
worth it.
Yeah, then I'll be lovable and worthy and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that was the game you were playing, hey?
Yeah.
So I know we covered this before, but what made you decide to start? I mean, you the therapy and you did all your research and stuff like that. What made you decide to start working with me and us? Like, why me over someone else?
Oh.
And what was it about me specifically?
I really liked this man. And I thought, oh, he is really different. And he is not going to date me if I don't figure myself out. Isn't that terrible? That's so terrible.
No, that's actually, I got to tell you, in codependency, I just spoke with Jenny, one of our graduates, and she said, you know, at first I did this because I thought it would, you know, make me a better wife to my husband and a better mom to my kids, and they're going to like me more.
Yeah.
But that was the intent. She was like, look, whatever got me into the work, what I realized was kind of like what you're about to say, the motive for it, when, especially with codependency issues in the background, naturally we do this for an external validation. And so you just exposed, you said, I got to do something or I'm going to lose this guy, which is what a lot of people start doing the work on. I mean, I did it for an external, I started working on that for an external reason too, only to discover that the real reason is to just feel safe with myself. Right. So yeah, I just interrupted you. Go on with that.
No, you're fine. I'm sad for her. Right. Like, I did not cry. I drank to not have to cry. Right. And now I'm like, oh gosh, I just cry. I'm a crier. I'm so sad for her. And every time I re-experience that, I think, man, the universe just loves me because I got very lucky to meet him. And he said, this makes you laugh too, but he said, I've been thinking about how like magical this is. This was after our first date. He lived away. It was a whole thing. And he said, but I figured out that the biggest risk we have is you. And I'm like, because in my experience, people did not say what they meant. And they damn sure didn't say things that could be hurtful. So because he just they were hurtful, you could never come back from it. But he just, and I was like, oh,
I've never been called out like that.
On my side of the texting, I'm like miserable. And then I thought, well, he's not wrong. And I think I'm the biggest risk to this relationship too. So let's just figure that out. I've always done therapy. I'm a big proponent in getting help from experts. And I've read all the books and I do all the things. But what I knew is that they always assumed you got past the point where you could feel things and not fall apart in some way. And I didn't know how to do that. And I had this person who could say, I've been where you are and this will work for you. And I thought, well, what the hell?
So it was basically like you trusted his word and you were like, all right, let's do this.
Isn't that crazy though? Even now when I think about it, I'm like, I trusted a man I'd gone on a date with to tell me that this is what I needed to do. And like I'm saying, glad he's not a serial killer. I got very lucky. But I mean, I also think that
you never know, right?
It's just nice to be seen. And somebody saw me and said, you can do this because I have done it. And I've been through all the books, I've been through it. And he said, like, I will say to people who are listening, it's possible. There is hope. It's just a lot of the kind of hard work that isn't in here. It's in sitting and receiving and feeling and just going it's like an exorcism.
Yeah.
I was warned it was like an exorcism. There was a period of time where I looked forward to meeting with you because I think at one point I told you I am non-functional. I have been crying for 2 days and I don't know why. And you said, that's okay. You'll find out why. And eventually I figured out the why. But had I not just sat with the crying, I wouldn't have learned the skill of figuring out my own why.
That was my next question, because a lot of people say, yeah, you know, I'm going to go to my counselor or therapist. You know, they'll reach out and they'll say, well, let me see what my therapist says about this. How would you say this is different? How would you say our container is different?
So I don't know that you know this, but I checked in with a therapist every month while I was in this program.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, because I wasn't going to tell you. But
okay, cool. That's great. A lot of people do, and that's great.
I think it's just integration, and it's a choice that I needed to make so that I knew my own scaffolding. But therapy tells you how to think about where you've come from. And it will often give you a framework for how to think about where you're going. But neither of those teach you how to feel. And when I say how to feel, I don't mean what to feel. I mean how to feel.
Sounds a lot easier than it actually is, right?
It is so hard to just be sad.
Especially when you've been dismissing and denying your emotions for so long.
Right. And I think that societally, we have a really hard time with people being anything other than copacetic or happy. And I don't know that this was true in prior generations. People died and were hurt and, I don't know, lost legs, but we feel like we should not have to do that. We've ascended beyond it. And so just crying.
There's a happiness fantasy.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's a happiness promotion of a happiness fantasy that's out there in psychology. And it's actually causing us to invalidate our shadow. And so, you know, this is different. And so I'm really glad that you are able to distinguish that. I'm curious if your therapist every month when you would visit them noticed any shifts in you or gave you any feedback when you were seeing with this level of work.
So she did. I've always been very good, I think, at being open and honest out of my brain. Yeah. I struggle to be open and honest with my body and with my feelings. And so I just told her, I'm going to learn how to get coached through feeling things, much like if I needed to lose weight, I might see a gym trainer. I don't think that changes the medical situation. And I was very careful about I'm really careful about who my therapists are. And so they're like, you do you, boo. We'll figure out some boundaries. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to do anything detrimental to myself. But she was like, how did this all happen in a week? And I'd be like, it's been a week, man. And I just checked in with her monthly. So she would be like, nope, nothing you're doing is, you know, whatever, crazy. Yeah. Keep going.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah. Because what we're doing, which is somatic based, doesn't go against any therapy. It actually goes deep. It actually makes whatever therapy you're doing much more effective, you know, if you're choosing to do that. That's really what somatic work is about. So you want to share what happened during the time that we worked together as far as like breakthroughs, epiphany, something that you might have realized that actually changed everything for you?
Well, I think there were two, because I can never lock in on one. I had this belief, like a core belief, that I had to offer value in order to be worthy. Full stop. And that's really sad when you think about it. But there's this idea that I got from you that what we're looking for is a safe container. And what I have found, I have a 10-year-old, is that the most I can offer, the most value I can offer is actually the value in my willingness to receive. Which, can we cuss here, by the way? Holy shit, was like, that's probably the culmination, right? I am not a receiver. I feel indebted if I receive.
To
And
life.
I owe somebody. And so by offering me something, you are indebting me, and I cannot do that.
So you're literally unconsciously, because of our unwillingness to receive, pushing love away again and again and again.
And I mean, I work on this, right? I will always be
that's a work in progress.
Anxious, avoidant,
pattern.
Unsafe person. When I am unsafe, I will be anxious and avoidant, and I get that. But like with my son, he had a bad day, and past me would have tried really hard to fix it, because that's my value. I want to be a good mom, and I want to tell you what to say and how to do it, and I'll talk to your teacher. And I heard your voice in my head, because I just said, ooh, that must have been terrible. And he talked his way through it. He felt his feelings. I held his hand, all in the little space of getting home from school. And at the end, he thanked me. And to turn that, I am dating a grown-up man who is also just a little boy inside. And he was having a really rough day. And I listened. And it was like, I mean, when you have a bad day, it's like Eeyore. And I just kept like, wow, that sucks, or that must feel terrible, or how did that feel? And it was mind-blowing to him, because we don't allow men. You
were able to create a different experience for a guy that he never really had before, based on the work that you've done, which is what the original guy that you met created for you, right? Interesting how now you're kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. It sounds like with the work that you've done, you've shifted the dynamic within your family. You've now attracted a relationship, like a secure, would you say, like it's a slow, steady, secure relationship rather than the classic kind of trauma bond that you were in before? What was your biggest win since you started working with us?
That I trust myself. I think and look, how long has it been? 9 months ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's what everybody says. Trust yourself. But I think that in practice, like right now, see, I'm crying. And instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm crying, I'm just saying, I felt the thing and my body felt the thing. That's okay.
You're allowing, you're trusting, you change your relationship with yourself and your own emotions. And has that impacted your work at all? I'm curious, what's been the biggest win at work too? Because you do have, you're an executive you have taken like an executive role in corporate, which is very masculine dominated. And so did you notice any shifts happening with work? My name is Dr. Nima Rahmany, and you've been listening to the Trigger Proof, designed to teach you the most important skill necessary for a dramatically changing world, which is nervous system regulation. And becoming trigger proof doesn't mean trigger less. It means learning how to regulate ourselves to bring us back to center so that we can then be governed by our purpose rather than from our wounds. Anytime there's reactivity, there's a wound. And if you're curious and inspired to learn more, join us at Breathwork and Badassery or the Overview Experience. There's a difference between listening to a podcast and actually showing up live and doing the work with a badass community who's all about breaking cycles of intergenerational trauma. It didn't start with you, but it can end with you if you're willing to do the work. See you at the next perfect time.
Corporate executive in a tech company, although I work from home clearly. And I've always been the weird one. Like I was the one who could talk to the people, or I was the one with people skills, right? From office space. But I've always led my team by coaching them and trying to help them find their place of superpowers. And I hid that. You actually made me, I shouldn't say make. You strongly recommended that
I
I
coached
do
you
this
went
thing.
after a session. I
Right,
coached you
'cause
after a session. Yeah.
got deeply uncomfortable when being given compliments. I'm that person who's like, oh, great dress. Oh, I got it for $2. Whatever.
You dismiss or push away the receiving of compliments, which is very
Right.
common in trauma.
And so what you suggested was that I go to my team. I have direct reports who are like senior directors. And I ask them what they love about working for me. And the snark in me, because this is what we do, is I was like, oh my God, it would be hilarious if they were silent. Wouldn't that be funny? But because misery loves company, and I warned them, we all did it because we're all this kind of person. We're fixers and problem solvers who shirk any sort of credit. And so we did it. Each one of us took a turn of being silent while the other 6 of us talked about what was great about us. And so that was the start, actually. We've been through, I'm in healthcare, a lot of volatility with COVID. And so my team meetings there for like all the people that work in my organization have become much less about what we've done and what our bullets are and what our goals are, because that's just the thing we do. And more about being human and leaving space for grief and other people's grief and processing and transitions. We just talked about.
Sounds like the whole culture of the organization has now shifted because of who you become.
I think it was always there, but I am not hiding it anymore, which is probably my theme, right?
You just notice how you just push. You just did it again. Nice one. You're like, no, it was always there. Like, no. Just say,
no.
Fucking right. Yes, yeah, fucking right. I did.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
take it.
I
Receive
hope
that.
it is true that people that work in my organization, and we have hourly people all the way up to senior directors, feel like not only do they get to be themselves, I expect it of them. And that means if you have to choose between being human and some corporate crap, go be human. But that also means we talk in our we have weekly staff meetings about receiving as a gift that you give other people.
So you're teaching my shit to other people and a copyright infringement? Excuse me? What? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm in the US. I think there's like
We're good.
We can't import export
please,
from Canada.
please enjoy. So what's been going on now? What's been going on in your life now? How do you feel now?
So
looking back,
I would be wondering, right? The man that I met, we didn't like run off together. It turns out real life, beautiful stories don't end that way. Geography still matters. He's there. I'm here. Your
relationship evolved.
It did.
It evolved. You guys are now good friends. And now what's going on?
I started dating again in January. I was a little bit terrified, right? Because I got really lucky and I met this one guy and I thought, there's just this one guy in the world.
There's nobody else.
There's nobody else. And I am not going to train them. Oh, you lucked up. Right? I was like, I'm not going to train them. I'm not going to bring them all to Nima parties. That's that person. Like, he's your Tinder outreach person. So
You're dating.
met this inner child that turns out to be just who I am is very smart and very experienced. And she is not wrong. I just didn't know all along how disrespectful and dismissive I was being. And so it
towards
turns out,
towards yourself.
Yeah, sorry, right. I should be clear. My inner child is me. So I just listened to her a lot. And so I dated a couple of men who were really nice and they did not mind whatever I am. I no longer say
you took off, you started dating and you've now taken off the mask and shown as your authentic self, kind of like the person who you met, who introduced you to the work.
And I keep trying, right? Because there are levels, but I got better at choosing what works for me, not just what I can offer to somebody else. And it's a daily practice that my existence is enough. So one of the things that I took from your program that is specific to you is when you do a daily journaling practice, it's not just what am I grateful for? Because it was the same list. And then I would start to like, oh God, I forgot somebody. So now the world's going to end. You advise that I track evidence of my dreams manifesting. And so look, I do it every day. And the title every day is Evidence of My Dreams Manifesting.
Good exercise for you if you're listening, for you to
every
do that.
day. And it's different than journaling. So it's not my thoughts, because I learned this from you. My thoughts lie all the time. And my feelings are truth, but I often don't know how to interpret them. And so if I just look for evidence, like here's one. I went on a date and I was mostly me. So when he said, you look uncomfortable, I said,
I'm a little uncomfortable right now.
A little awkward.
It's just the way it is.
Never met you before.
Yeah.
And I said, are you uncomfortable? And he said, yeah, I kind of am. And
boom.
That's a completely different way that, no, I'm good.
That's
great.
a different way of relating than you did before. And it sounds like you're now kind of building a secure relationship now.
I'm trying not to be like, maybe, yes.
Yeah.
So, and early on, we were just talking about this. A thing came up that was not a happy thing. And he said, things feel really unfinished and weird. That's it. I just got a text that said that. And I could recognize that as not a thing I had to fix. It was an opening. And I said, I agree.
Wow. So the old reaction would have taken, you would have gotten flooded and you would have kind of reacted to that. And this time you were able to change the familiar dance to, using kind of like a conflict or a misattunement, what we call in somatic work, into an opportunity. And you're repairing and you're that's which is what building a secure relationship really is about.
Well, and I'd been practicing that skill with myself. So just like I would ask myself, tell me more. Why do you feel like that? I said to him, tell me more. What does unfinished mean? And we had a lot of like, I don't know moments. So I would say, I feel overwhelmed. This is not a thing I say. It is now. And he said, okay.
Welcome to intimacy. Welcome to intimacy.
And it allowed me to see the signs of someone that is a grown ass man showing up as a mature man. Yes. Acknowledging my maturity and capability, even though I'm not always perfect. And so when I'm not perfect, I called him a crazy name because he said something and I reacted and we both stared at each other. And then I was like, I don't know where that came from. And he said, okay, should we talk about where that came from? And then we talked about where that came from.
Sounds like you're having more of a mature relationship than that you're building maturity in relationship. And that's really what I want to share, is that building secure relationships is all about the capacity to repair. It doesn't mean lack of conflict. That's the fantasy out there, is I'm going to do my trauma healing work. And then when I get back on the dating scene, it's going to be perfect. It'll be perfect because it's just going to be a representation of all the amazing healing work that I've done on myself. And I'm not going to have any problems. And that's the fantasy.
Won't be triggered.
Yeah, that's the fantasy. It is. The work really begins again. The work really begins once you start dating and navigating all of these old stories and rupturing, misattuning, and then repairing. And it sounds like you're well on your way with that. So Marissa, how do you feel now in 3 or 4 words to describe kind of like the journey? Like, how do you feel now about it all?
Well, my identity has shifted. And like I said, the me before would be like, come on, but change in humans often requires an identity shift. And so before, I was a person with the fucked up relationship history who sucked at it. And now I think, I'm good at relationships.
Interesting.
With my son, now I'm a work in progress.
Of course.
But I have the skills to sit with whatever's coming up. and then listen
confidence
to whatever it tells me to do.
Sounds like what you're saying is that you feel confident about your skills in a relationship now, which is work in progress and there's no finish line, but you have confidence now, which you didn't have before.
Which is where the anxiety and avoidance came from.
Bingo.
Right? Because
lack
if
of
I don't
self-trust.
have the skills to repair, then I'm going to be really freaked out that something's going to go wrong and run around trying to prevent it. And then when it goes wrong, I'm going to be like, it's ruined. I'm out.
Totally.
Yeah.
So my last question is, what would you say to somebody who's kind of watching and can relate to what you're going through, and they're just kind of hesitant, not sure about working with us, they're considering it? What would you say to them, and who would benefit most from our work?
I would say, stop considering and listen to yourself, because you know deep down that what you tried didn't work and that you can't believe that there is a world in which there is no hope. So just stop. And it sounds so funny, but you already know it's, when it's terrifying, or when it's worthless, or whatever it is that is true for how you feel when you know. And I just did all the things that I had learned to avoid listening to myself. So you just do that.
Marissa, thank you so much for your courage, the work that you've done. I just look at your whole kind of ecosystem around you, from your home, your parenting, your workplace, and the people that you lead, and your company, at the company that you work for. And now, the kind of secure relationship that you're building, which is a work in progress. And it always is, mine too, with my wife. It's never a finish line. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your story and being so vulnerable. And I just want you to imagine the first day that we met and how blocked you were. And imagine that person seeing you having this conversation publicly right now. Could you believe, could you believe it?
The first time I talked to you, the guy I was dating asked how it went. We went a 45-minute drive, and every time I tried to speak, I was overcome with tears and I could not speak. So
yeah, people
it's nice to be here.
It's really great. Yeah, you were talking when you met him, and you were like, wow, he's showing me his insides. I want to learn how to do that. So I just want to tell you, look at you now. You showed a bunch of strangers on the internet your insides. So big win, fist bump, sister. Boom. Sending you so much love and appreciation. And anybody who can relate to Marissa's story and is ready to actually go deeper than just the cognitive, send me a DM. Let me know what you got out of this and what you'd love to create. And we'll see you all at the next perfect time.
And if you want, I can answer questions too.
Yeah.
It's such a big deal, y'all. Just
do it. Thank you. Take care.
Make sure you subscribe.